episode 212 of the Edible Valley podcast.
On this episode, we're talking fish and chips. Do you ever wonder where your food comes from? That's what got us started on this adventure.
In each episode, we ask experts to weigh in on the food topics that matter to you, from growers to producers to chefs.
And I challenge John, Darren and you to learn more about your food and the stories behind it. From our hub on Vancouver Island in the beautiful Comox Valley, join us as we explore our Edible Valley. And a very good day to you. My name is William. I am the producer.
I am Chef Jonathan Frazier.
And I am Darren. Fish and chips aficionado? No, I don't think so.
But there's no bacon in fish and chips, so you'll be okay. So in just a few days, I'm heading back to the UK after 3 years. Now, I live here now, so I'll be back in about a month. But we thought we'd go on talking about our basic foods by talking about fish and chips today. And don't we all love fish and chips?
Absolutely.
I think we do. But
No, it's horrible.
But not everyone in the world eats fish and chips, obviously. So let's delve a little bit into where it's eaten. Mostly Commonwealth countries and also the United States. But it was not originally made and invented by English people, which is a common misconception.
I know. Yeah.
I assume so.
Yeah, I mean, like so many things, everything's sort of connected in this world. And so if you go back far enough, the link that kind of brought it to the UK, it didn't just pop into someone's mind. The link that brought it into the UK can be traced back to Spanish and Portuguese Jewish immigrants that moved from that area of Europe into the UK in the 1600s. They took with them their traditional fried fish. I could go on about that forever, but essentially they brought with them their traditional recipes to the United Kingdom, and that is how it was brought to the UK, and then it evolved from there. I mean, if I know English people, and I think I do, sticking something in a deep fat fryer comes as second nature. So it was inevitable the minute they did it that the food was going to be bastardized. But how delicious. Yeah. How delicious is it? 1600s, it really appeared in any meaningful way as English fish and chips as we know it now in the 1860s. And by 1910, there were 25,000 chippies, which is what they're called in the UK, incidentally, maybe in England, actually. I think in Scotland, they probably go their own way, like with a lot of things. Fair enough. Controversial. But 25,000 chippies in the UK. But it's actually in decline. If you look now, as of 2009, only 10,000.
Wow.
I know. But there's never a shortage of chippies. I mean, I'm really excited about going back to the chippy. Another thing that helped it grow during the war, it was very much a poor man's food. Now in the United Kingdom, very much like the National Health Service, it's one of the few things that unites absolutely everyone, rich and poor. Everyone loves a good fish and chips. So when you go into the chippy on a Friday or a Saturday night in England, I love it because it's cheap. Usually it's under 10 quid for a portion. And you see everyone there of every income level looking forward to their fish and chips. So that's a little bit about where it came from. Really, in the wartime, it wasn't rationed. Yeah. It was one of the only things that wasn't rationed. So it grew really quickly in popularity. And it was originally wrapped in newspaper. And if you imagine that now, a bit rank.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a place in Victoria that we used to go to all the time, still to this day, still wraps your fish and chips.
Like in recycled newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they put
the bonds.
Parchment paper.
Bonds.
There's parchment
enough.
in there.
Yeah.
Used to be straight on the newsprint. You got the little black
ink
stain
I love
on the chip.
Now,
it added flavor, right?
Quite frequently now, actually, you see it with kind of fake newspaper.
Yeah.
So the company obviously sells them, and it's just, it kind of lends itself.
Yeah.
Where's it popular? Well, all over the Commonwealth and, curveball, Western Norway. but it's not. But it's not connected. They just happen to do
They
the
just
same
like
thing.
we like it.
Yeah. But out of the Commonwealth, I would say, from my experience, and factually, this is correct, that Canadian fish and chips is probably Canada is the second most popular place for fish and chips. It's wildly popular here. If you go down to the United States, it's a lot more niche. In Canada,
Really?
I feel that fish and chips is in any good pub. So there's your background.
Well, and I think you're just saying because we're a very Commonwealth country, right? So, and if you go down to Victoria, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little England, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I love your energy level today, Will. I feel like I don't know whether you're excited to go home or just talking about fish and chips because I know you come with big energy, but now I'm like, you're like, oh, and I'm like, why are we talking and not eating chips right now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, I've been, I work for a local radio station, 98.9 Jet FM, the Comox Valley's best rock. And I've actually been doing a lot of my voiceovers that are announcements that go out through the week. And it takes me hours to just do 2 each week to get them just right, and I have to record 12 in one day. And so I've been in this little, can I say this? Farty voiceover booth for the last 12 hours. No, I'm only joking. But I've been in the voiceover booth for 12 hours on my own, talking about all the events going on. And so I've got a lot of energy. Plus, I've just had a nice cup of coffee.
Well, that explains a lot of it. So. Oh, I'm excited to hear this. Yeah, just to be able to talk about fish and chips. Like, where do we even start with that? Like, we're definitely...
I don't know. Where do we start? I was thinking, one of the key points that you mentioned there is that it's really affordable and it's it was started as a poor man's food because abundant fish, potatoes are cheap. Both are cheap and easy in certain circumstances. So that got me to thinking that how over the years or over various people handling it, various chefs, we've added lots of other elements that give us a range of from the cheapest of the cheap to pretty expensive, and I would say like that really has nothing to do with the chips. It has to do with the fish.
Yeah. I mean, on that subject, one of the biggest changes I've seen in Canada is in England, when you order fish and chips, it's almost always cod.
Yeah.
If you're posh, maybe pollock.
Yeah.
But it's cod most of the time.
Cod, haddock.
There's and haddock indeed. Yeah. Here there's far more variety.
Yeah.
And when you see a fish and chip board, it's what's that? There's hake and
halibut is one of the
halibut.
big ones.
There we go. Which is delicious. You see halibut a lot more. So I feel that Canadians have taken it and kind of made it a bit more gourmet.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of halibut in fish. I like halibut as halibut, but as a fish and chips, I'm not a big fan. I find it to be almost too chewy. I like the softer, flakier fishes.
You know what it is?
The oilier fishes.
I like the oilier fishes too.
Cod.
And that's why I like cod, haddock, snapper.
Yeah, I think they're just better in
Even
fish and chips.
salmon. I've seen salmon, which I don't enjoy with fish and chips.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to Dick's Fish and Chips in Campbell River in 2013, and they gave me a fish and chip trio with 3 different types of fish, which just blew my mind. I'd never heard of anything like that before. Yeah, so the Canadian fish and chip market seems to have really gone into making it something its own. That's very much its own.
You know what I just thought of? I didn't, honestly, when we were talking about this episode, I didn't even think of it. I'm like, when was the last time I had fish and chips? Oh, it was this weekend. I was in Vancouver. And it's not, I don't actually eat it that often. Like, I do love fish and chips, but I don't eat it all the time. But the thing that they did that was so different that I was really blown away with, they put herbs in the batter. So it was a really heavily tarragon flavored fish and chips, which I quite liked. It was really nice because it was a flash fry. You could tell just by the way the fry was, so it wasn't in there long to damage the herb. Yeah. It was good. It was really good.
Well, that's maybe something we talked a little bit about fish, but let's talk a little bit about batter because I think batter's something.
That's key.
It is crucial. Isn't it?
And everyone has a different batter and a different belief in sort of what it is.
I grew up on fish and chips. My grandpa owned a restaurant that actually we just drove past the old building the other day and saw that they were just finally tearing it down. It's been long since in disrepair. But years ago when he did own it, from when I was a wee little baron, I ate fish and chips all the time.
Did you say wee little Darren?
I said wee little baron.
Okay.
The batter was really, it was one of those almost doughy batters. And that's how I first was introduced to it. And I didn't love fish and chips until they got into the thinner, crispier batters.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like you have the choice. Like you can go with like a really rich beer batter, right?
Right.
So you're going to add like probably like, what's a good ratio? Like 2 to 3 flour to beer volume.
Right.
And it's got that little bit of carbonation in that, so it's going to give a little bit of puff to it, as well as maybe putting a little baking soda in there and such. But yeah, adding a little bit of seasoning to there, and the extra flavor, and getting a nice heavy batter. Whereas you can flip to the other side, and when Will was talking about salmon, I always like it in like a tempura, which is
great.
It's so a little bit
super
lighter,
thin and light.
Yeah, with a nice fresher, because the salmon has so much flavor to it,
right?
Compared to something like a cod, which doesn't have that flavor, but picks up the other flavors, and that's what makes your beer batter. So yeah, tarragon in there is a beautiful mix. So.
Have you got much experience of the store-bought batter mixes?
I remember actually I used to use a lot of the King Cole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that became our batter mix for, it was really because of our calamari. We used to do calamari that we would flour egg wash bread,
right?
And then we'd bag it, and we'd literally do like 2 cases at a time, and so we'd make like 300 or 400 portions of these. And I remember rolling them in these little paper bags and then freezing them, and then dropping them. It was such a disaster. They were good fish and chips, but like so heavy with this like bread crumbing on this. And then we switched over to this someone's like, why don't we just use this beer or this fish and chip batter mix, and we threw some extra herbs, some fresh dill and stuff like that.
Yeah, added something to it.
And then toss those in there, and they would and there was no egg or water or liquid or anything. We just toss them. So basically the liquid from the calamari, toss them in there and then drop them in there, and they just came out really quick and really crisp, and it was nice. And I was like, and it was more like, oh, such a relief that we didn't have to. Now we could like cut one bag up at a time and just take a portion out and do it. So, but yeah, we started using that, and then that we're like, well, if it works so good for there, we'll just throw some beer in there and mix it all together. So it was just a time saving. So instead of putting all your ingredients in there, we just not at one of the finer establishments I've worked in very early in my career. Now I'm more like, I'd rather do it from scratch. So. I don't know. I just feel like if I got my own recipe, I can nail it down. So
get it the same every time.
Yeah, and then just getting that batter, just getting that nice crisp on the inside, and then having the nice delicate fish in the middle is like that's the big goal, right?
So okay. So we'll keep talking about heavy fry, whatever. The balance, you need to balance it out. There's quite an array of things. I mean, you're talking about fried chips, fried
we haven't
fish.
even talked about oil.
Oh,
I think that's.
Do you want to talk about oil? Oh, okay. I guess so. Yeah. I mean, in that regard, I would say that given the choice, I would use a peanut oil over. Like, I personally like using a peanut. I don't find peanut oil to be too fragrant. I find it to be everything comes out a little lighter and crispier though. So that's my preference.
What do you say for traditional, Will?
Trad, probably in England, I'd say sunflower oil, rapeseed oil sometimes.
Right. Or lard is another.
Really?
Lard?
Yeah.
What? Really?
Talk about heavy.
So like lard, because it's got all that extra flavor and stuff, and especially for doing French fries. Like the best French fries you'll ever have are done
in lard.
In lard, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and that's, I remember there's a McDonald's changed from lard to canola, so because of saturated fats.
Yep.
And the fries have never been the same.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's one of the things. So lard is I think it's got flavor in it. It just adds something. And it depends on if you believe saturated fats will kill you. I mean, abundance of anything will kill you, but
sure.
I still think that.
What about an abundance of love?
You know what? You can be loved to death. I'll let you run with that.
So oil. I mean, if you're in a restaurant or somewhere like that, you want to make sure they're changing the oil very regularly because you're going to start to get an old taste coming through. Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, if I can throw a tip out there that just struck me, if anybody's cooking fish and chips at home or trying it at home, make sure your oil temperature, like that is so key when you're doing anything battered, battered. Even if you let it drop 20 degrees, you're going to have a soggy, oil-laden batter that never quite crisps versus crispy. And that's just awful. Actually, I don't want to name the restaurant, but the kids and I remember last summer stopped in. We all had fish and chips. And they had obviously tried to cook too much fish at once and drop the temperature down. And it was just a soggy, oily, gross mess. And we didn't even finish it. We went and ate elsewhere after. But yeah, it's key. As soon as if you overcrowd your vessel, you're going to drop the temperature and everything's going to become soggy and oily.
I was laughing at work because one of our apprentices was trying to make pakora for a namouche the other day. And she's sitting there and she's got the oil and she drops it in there. And of course, it comes out black on the outside. And I'm like, did you set the temperature? She's like, well, it just looked like it was hot enough. And I'm like, well, that's what happens. And then she's like, so I'm like, turn the temperature down, which she turns off. And I'm like, just turn the temperature down, let the oil come down in temperature and test it with a thermometer to make sure at the right temperature. Because we're doing this in a pot because we don't have deep fryers. I don't think we're allowed to have deep fryers. And so we go through that, and then I come over and they're like, now it's the opposite because the temperature's gone down too low. Right. And she's like, I don't get what I'm doing. I'm like, let's get the temperature. let's get it around 350. Yeah. 325 to 350. And then I'm like, and then
pakora, for sure.
And then once it gets to that temperature, let it settle. Like you got like turn the temperature down and get it to make sure it stays for a few minutes. Like don't just it's at 350, drop it in because that flame's under there, so it could still go up past that. So make sure it's stabilized. Get that in there, and then they were beautiful. Yeah, like nice and crispy on the outside, and just creamy in the middle. So
such a key. Same thing with your French fries. The difference between soggy, wilty French fries and crispy ones. Absolutely, it lies in that 20 degrees of oil. Which if you're cooking fish, I would say more like 350 to 360 is where you'd want to cook it. But yeah.
Well, on that subject, let's move on to the fries because not just something that you just chuck on.
We're talking chips here.
You were talking chips. Did I just say fries? Oh, wow.
There's gonna be protests as you get off the plane.
Terrible.
Yeah. They're like, you're too Canadian now.
One notable change in or evolution in fish and chips when it moves around the world is in the United States, where they actually use fries. It's called fish and chips, but you get fries.
Right.
Then you're not, and actually sometimes that's the case in Canada too. Yeah. You're not getting fat chips or home fries. Right. Or no, American fries they're called in the UK.
Oh, okay.
I've just remembered that. Sure. Anyway, so but fries are very important. If they're not cooked enough in the middle, or if you cooked at too much of a high temperature, then the outside's lovely and the inside's hard. How do you do the best fries?
You're talking about like
chips.
You're talking about like a French fry, though. Like
chips.
A chip. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if we're talking the same thing. We are talking the same.
Yeah.
Like, you can get a version of them at McDonald's.
No, not.
What do you want to mean for a
fat,
chip?
not thin.
Thin. Okay.
We're talking home fries.
Okay.
Total home fries.
So
as you take that camembert potato, and you stick it in that press, slices it into little things.
So what do I do for those?
Yeah.
There's quick processes where you're just getting away with stuff and you're not getting the full result, but then there's more in-depth processes. The more in-depth process, I would give it. First off, wash the starch off them. I would get some of the starch out. I would chill them, super chilled, and then I would give them an initial fry.
A blanching fry.
Yeah, blanching fry.
Yeah.
Which is a lower temperature.
Yeah, exactly. You want a lower temperature, and you don't want it to start. You want maybe just to start changing color on the outside, but you don't want any goldening happening. And then I'd freeze those off.
How do you mean freeze them off?
I'd literally lay them back out on a tray.
Yeah.
And freeze them. And I'd put them in there until I wanted. So I could do everything up to there.
Okay.
I could do everything up to there days in advance.
It's to help you prep, not to help the taste.
Absolutely helps the taste.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you're freezing them between after the blanching fry. Okay.
And then when I go to put them in the deep fryer, make sure my deep fryer is set at the temperature I want, which is about 360. And then 3 minutes. and all you're doing is cooking the outside and bringing the inside back up to temperature. But your potato inside has already been cooked in that blanching cook. Yeah. So there you're getting a nice, soft, almost mashed in as far as texture, a little bit of flakiness inside, and then you're getting a nice crispy outside. That's for me. I don't know about John. And then season it well.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much. I don't have time to freeze them, so I'm just going to go straight from blanching them, cooling them, throwing them back in.
Cooling them off then is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Blanching them and then straight in.
Well,
they'll turn to mush if you don't let them cool.
Yeah, they need to. Everything needs to firm back up in them. So that's why Darren's like, throw them in the freezer because they cool down really quick.
So we're kind of already in this area, but a lot of people, when they think fish and chips, they think going out to a chip shop or a restaurant or a pub. Mm-hmm. What would be the way someone could do that at home quite easily? Because it's not actually that difficult.
No. I mean, it's a little dangerous. It's like a level 2 or level 3 if you're gonna start attempting to deep fry things at home. But all of that's easily capable on your stovetop. Just make sure I wouldn't even tackle it unless you have a heavy pot. No light pots. None of your light pots. That's just recipe for disaster. Yeah. And make sure you have a very accurate thermometer
and a big pot.
Yeah, big pot. Yeah, because you're gonna get a lot of rising of that oil.
Yeah,
if you put oil to even like 3/4 the way up, I guarantee you're going to have a fire.
I've got the perfect example. Just YouTube.
Yeah,
deep fried turkey on back deck.
Where the person lights their deck on fire.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is the turkey goes in, oil goes
displaces
over,
hits
flame, ignites, house goes up.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's super dangerous. That's what I'm saying. It's like a level 2, level 3. Don't try this if you're apprehensive in the kitchen. This is not where you start.
That's why when you go in and you buy one, you have, actually, I think you have mine.
Yeah. Oh, the little tabletop ones.
Yeah. I think I have a little, what is it? It's a KitchenAid tabletop. But you'll notice it says minimum, maximum for oil in there.
Yeah.
And that reason is so when you put your wet stuff in there and it foams up, it's got room to not overflow. So you got to think about that. So you don't want your oil right up to the top of your pot.
And that's the other thing too. The only reason I would do, I would do it on my stovetop, except I hate my house smelling like deep fry oil.
Okay.
So I have the little tabletop thing that was John's. Is John's. We'll see about that. And I have it. I take it outside. It doesn't ever cook inside. It cooks outside. I would never do it in here. But yeah. And then I would like to get back to the balancing, though. I mean, the thing I love, as much as I love fish and chips, without the right balance.
You're talking accompaniments, aren't you?
Yeah, without the right balancing I don't enjoy it because
so
it becomes
ketchup.
Heavy. Can't stand ketchup. Can't stand ketchup. No, I quite prefer the way my grandpa used to do it, which was we had malt vinegar. And then
Yep.
Some malt vinegar on your fish.
Malt vinegar and salt.
Yeah.
Salt and vinegar.
I'm sorry, I got to get this out because it's just going to destroy Darren. But we take a battered fish and chip and wrap it in bacon. Cover it with
that
tomato
might
sauce.
not actually. I don't know. I can't imagine that.
Sorry, let's get back on
ketchup batter. No,
malt vinegar. You were saying
malt vinegar. My kids prefer lemon. They like to squeeze a lot, and I'm all for it. If there's no malt vinegar available, I will absolutely have lemon. But yeah, you need an acidic balance.
Yeah,
you just can't.
I'd agree. I mean, I don't usually have vinegar, but it is one of those things that it's that acidic balance, and what that means when you're actually eating it is it's just like goes to another level.
I agree.
You're just like, wow, the tastes from that.
Yeah,
it's just so much better. And in terms of that, what would you say about something like tartar sauce?
It absolutely 100% has to be with it.
Yeah.
I can't, and the tartar can be. In any, I'm open to a lot of interpretations there. I find like that's where I'm willing to go out on a limb more and try interesting things, but it has to have its basic tartar elements.
Tartar or a remoulade.
Yeah, a remoulade
Taking a step back.
Try asking for a remoulade in a London chip shop and see what happens to you.
Flavors of remoulade.
What do you have? Flavor of remoulade. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of that because there's a lot of fat in there, so it's a little bit of that acid just to counteract that.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
okay.
Remember we were talking way back about that macaroni.
Yeah.
Or saffron macaroni with the pork belly,
right.
And we put a little citrus salad on there,
which is absolutely vital. Yeah.
And so what that is it just cuts through that fat just to make it a little more manageable. And that's like, having like coleslaw or something on the side or tartar
Both
sauce.
of them, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I absolutely can't do a creamy coleslaw with fish and chips. It has to be a vinegar-based slaw. It just has to be.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then the remoulade again. I like it to, if it's not going to be heavily dilly pickly, in there. I would like it some other sort of form of acidity. And they just all help.
Even like a gherkin or something like that. Is definitely.
I mean, a little sweet, but yeah.
Now, I haven't actually ever been to a Canadian fish and chip shop, which I'm not sure I've ever even seen one.
I thought you just said
on
you
my
had that
on my
triple trio
Instagram
fish and chip, but like an actual fish and chip shop.
Yeah, like that was more of a restaurant,
Right.
Oh, okay.
Like when you go in there and it's just a counter and you queue up and then you
Right.
order and they chuck it into a bag and give it to you.
Oh yeah.
But in the hot cabinet, which looks ugly but it's just full of this delicious looking stuff, they've got all the various sizes of fish. And then they've got pot pies and battered sausage, which isn't something I've ever seen here.
No.
Battered sausage.
No, not at all.
Yeah, delicious.
And pot pies are so much more popular over in the UK.
Yeah, they
than
are.
here.
Yeah, when you say
Which
a
I don't
pie-
understand, because pot pies are phenomenal and they should be more popular here.
I don't get it either. But Canada seems to have adopted more of the American model of pies,
Right.
which is very much 4th of July and raspberry tart and I don't know, all these kind of sweet ones, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I think pot pie is every
Savory
time.
pies
We could do
are
a whole
so
episode.
Savory pie.
Yeah. But the only other thing I'll say with this is here you have 1, 2, and 3 piece fish and chips. In England, it's just small or large.
Oh, wow.
They don't specify.
Yeah.
It's a fish that is big and was clearly caught as an adult, or a fish that's little and was caught as a kid.
Oh.
And that's it. You don't get a few bits in
You're just
there.
getting the whole fish in there?
You get the whole fish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They don't mess around.
It's about a foot long sometimes. If you get, or more, if you get a good one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's delicious. Yeah. And I usually, and I think we're probably going to need to end this now.
Sure.
But I usually like to have large pollock and chips. I like pollock a bit more. With a battered sausage, large chips. Job done.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of calories.
That's a lot.
I understand why we have to end this because I'm getting hungry now. And since you're going to England, I got to bring one more up that's not on any of our lists. Brown sauce.
Oh, disgusting. Very, very acidy. No, it's not my thing, but it's very, very popular.
Yeah. And I find it's like we have HP sauce here, but it's not quite the
It's
same.
the same. It is exactly the same thing.
It's exactly
It
the
is-
same.
that is
I've
what-
never...
HP sauce and brown sauce are interchangeable names.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely. But funny enough, this is an English ponciness, like maybe the class system or something. But if someone says they want brown sauce, yeah, no problem. If someone says I want red sauce, as in tomato ketchup, I'll be like, call it its proper name. It's tomato ketchup or it's ketchup. Here, people don't say tomato ketchup; they say ketchup.
Yeah.
But I hate it when they say red sauce. But why? Because brown sauce is called brown sauce.
Yeah. Interesting.
So interesting. Yeah.
And I know we're going on a tangent of a tangent here. Last time I was in England, I think I mentioned this once before. I was in a McDonald's because it was next door to the hotel. And
Excuse.
Yeah. And their breakfast menu, they had an item, and it was like a biscuit with bacon and brown sauce or something of that variety. But it was a biscuit with bacon on it. We were like, what? What is that? I've never
Really?
heard of that. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I must say I never really thought about McDonald's for breakfast until I came to Canada and discovered the McGriddle menu, which you need to check out. But in Tim Hortons, I like their biscuits, and I always add bacon, and they always question me about it, and I'm like, what is your problem?
Well, I mean, the only thing that blew me away was this thing was devoid of egg or cheese or whatever that we would habitually find in breakfast sandwiches here. It was just a biscuit with bacon and then some sauce. And I was like, oh, that's right up my son's alley. But he's about the only person I know that would appreciate that.
Wow. Yeah. It is interesting how they change around the world.
Yeah. Anyways.
And you know what? There was probably a chippy right next to that McDonald's, and you blew it.
Yeah, there was some fantastic eats around that place. But for whatever reason, I had quite a late night. I missed breakfast in the hotel that morning. I was forced to go next door.
Darren, you strike me as the sort of chap who has some stories to tell.
Yeah.
from your heyday.
That's from look for my other podcast, Darren After Dark.
Owner of 8 Catering. You've got many different angles to you.
On that note,
Yeah. So I'm off. Cross the pond.
yes.
But plenty more podcasts coming every single week. So I can't wait to continue listening to them, and I'll be back again in late June, early July.
All right. Well, good travels, safe travels.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Bon voyage.
Yeah, I'll probably come back a bit more English when I get back.
Looking forward to it. Give us some lowdown on food trends over in.
Well, I've had
London.
so a lot of people have asked me to bring stuff back.
Well, we're asking you to bring stuff back now.
Yeah.
Bring back food trends.
Why'd you wink? Funny enough, apparently Skittles in England are different. I'm talking about the candy.
Yeah.
Apparently there's raspberry flavor, or blackcurrant flavor or something. I've just been told
Skittles
to
don't
get
have
Skittles.
flavor. They're Skittle flavored, and then they're colored differently. They're all the same flavor.
Is that right?
Yeah. I'm
That's
not
not
putting you on.
fact.
Yeah. I'm not putting you on. They don't even claim to be different flavors. They're all, or do they have flavored now?
Okay.
Am I that far out of it?
He's already backing down.
I'm like, wait a minute. The world went on past when I stopped eating Skittles 20 years ago. Maybe they are flavored now.
I'm gonna go get some Skittles. I think. I don't know. I have
Now
no
we're
idea.
promoting McDonald's, Skittles. Where's our advertising?
Well, we started with fish and chips, so we're going down a slippery slope. But it's still one of my favorite things. I still love going into a pub or a nice place down by the waterfront, and even there was a bunch of places I used to visit down to Victoria. There's a few places around here I like to get fish and chips once in a while, and I don't know, it's a comfort food, right?
Yeah.
Like I know what Will's saying, like just
If you do want to check out my Instagram, there is a picture. I made my son take a picture of the Tarragon fish and chips from last week.
is that the Pokemon champion?
Yeah, that's the son that's a Pokemon champion.
Nice.
Nice.
More stories about Darren.
All right. This is the Edible Valley podcast, episode 113. My name is William. I'm the producer.
Is it 113 or 112?
I thought you said 113.
212. You guys are way off.
Oh, two.
You know what?
Whatever.
It's a number.
It's another
It's
episode.
episode number, whatever. And I'm Darren, woefully out of touch with Skittles, apparently.
have a good one. Speak to you soon.
Thanks.
And that wraps up another episode of the Edible Valley podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks goes to the local businesses that help support our podcast. They make it possible for us to showcase your local food community. We'd love you to follow us on your preferred social media at Edible Valley, where you can check out our blog, find recipes and tips, behind the scenes, and of course keep a lookout for where we are going to turn up next in your Edible Valley.
I'm imagining and hoping and praying that you guys.
I've got a couple angles. I'm sure he's got a couple angles.
But do we want to? So we want to talk about what fish and chips are. Sure. So we talk about regional fish and chips.
No.
Okay.
Sure. Whatever.
I'm going to mention
I don't want you being caught up in there. Just have a conversation.
And this has been an Edible Valley production.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. Okay. Ready again?